Welcome to Rip to Shreds, and today we're going to rip Longlegs 2024 by Oz Perkins to shreds.
That's absolutely right, and I think, just to get us started, we should go over all the tiny little minutiae that make up this film, all the trivia, anything we know about the making of this, about Oz Perkins, about anything to do with this, before we talk about anything like plot or dumb stuff like character and spirituality. We're going to talk about the trivia
But
first.
of course, spoilers, so go watch the movie or don't watch the movie and get it spoiled for you. All right.
And
Those
then
are
come back
your-
and see us.
Yes.
Exactly.
Put us on pause first, though.
But leave the
episode
video
five will be over.
playing so we get that retention and more views.
We'd appreciate it.
So the first piece of trivia that I have right here, so Oz Perkins, he said in an interview that he just wanted to make his own Silence of the Lambs. And so he just started writing it. And he's just like, let's just figure it out. And he said, like, the actual story, it not being Silence of the Lambs, just kind of came out after he started writing it. And so he just went on with the intent of, I'm going to make my own Silence of the Lambs, which, of course, everybody's comparing it to that, especially the Buffalo Bill aspect with Nicolas Cage. So I want to ask you guys.
Maybe he just shouldn't have said anything.
Probably not.
There's probably a bad idea.
I think he said it like afterwards, which is funny because people were already comparing it. But so I'll ask you guys this: if this is like Silence of the Lambs, so when I ask, I want to watch Silence of the Lambs, and my mom says we have Silence of the Lambs at home. Is this that version? Is this the Wish.com version of Silence of the Lambs? Or
Hell no.
does it compare? I'd say it compares pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say it's Silence of the Lambs that went off in a different world, different spectrum.
True.
You know, whereas Silence of the Lambs is a serial killer movie that's a little bit more grounded and a little bit more based on. Like,
You're right. It is a little bit
idea-
more based. Yeah. No.
based.
More
Yeah,
based.
it's like more like based off animalistic feelings. I think with the whole like cannibalism and Hannibal Lecter being like like an alpha, always on top, watching, almost like he's like staring at his prey. In Longlegs, it's a little bit more about like the corruption of like religious things can do to young kids and families, So it's more of like a spiritual version, whereas Silence of the Lambs is more physical, if that makes any sense to you guys.
And that plastic surgery will make you a serial killer.
That too.
You see, the comparison point, I wouldn't say Silence of the Lambs. To me, this movie feels a lot more like the TV show Hannibal, which flirted with some ideas of it being somewhat supernatural, at least in terms of how they framed certain things. It was definitely playing with that idea, and it feels like Oz Perkins took that sort of aesthetic and mixed it with a bit more of the procedural mystery aspects of Silence of the Lambs, and then turned those elements of the supernatural up to 11 for this film.
Wow.
Literally having the devil himself.
Yeah, no, for real.
Well, I don't know if it's dialed up to 11, because I feel like the supernatural aspect was kind of held back a little bit. It was there, but it wasn't like literally in your face the whole time.
I think it was played out in a very like realistic kind of way, and I know that that might confuse some people, but when you have real paranormal things in life, they're not, Hollywoodified, crazy jump scares, all that kind of stuff. So I would say it's a very realistic portrayal. But I would
like in your face the whole time,
Yeah.
which is like what we expect from like a movie. We're expecting like Satan to appear or be like in your face the whole time. Maybe the devil in the red face paint.
we get some
the horns,
we get some
everything
glowing
like that.
eyes. We get some glowing eyes.
A
So
little is it's subtle,
I
which is like the
would-
most important thing.
I would say that this makes Oz Perkins, maybe a little psycho. What's that next fun fact, Josiah, about Oz
Yeah.
Perkins?
Well, you might notice his last name Perkins. What's the other like notable person in film who has that last name? Well, Anthony Perkins, who was in
Oh.
Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho as Norman Bates. You know, the father of all, essentially the father of all slashers in a way, um, in terms of their villains and in terms of their films. And so Anthony Perkins, this is his son. Oz Perkins actually played Norman Bates in young form in Psycho 2. So this is almost like the fulfillment of a of a life of being in the realm of the serial killer on film for Mr. Perkins.
Bum bum bum. And speaking of serial killers on film, Nicolas Cage said, "Well, it's a fact. This is Nicolas Cage's first time playing a serial killer."
Which is crazy.
And he came out and said that this is his first and last time, because he does not enjoy violence and he does not like to play people who like to hurt other people. So he said, he's like, I'm sure that this will make my phone ringing off the door, trying to get me to play serial killers. And he's like, but nah, I do not want to do that. So definitely respect to the man himself.
Yeah.
I think that's wise. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it later, but definitely with this film, I was thinking on the meaning of it and going, you know, is this a film that is trying to put the fear of God in people, or is this a film that is saying there is no God? You know, it's kind of ambiguous.
Is it a film that's just trying to hail Satan?
Well, exactly, and we'll talk about that later. You know, it's interesting. Nicolas Cage, you know, he's a big actor. He's a known actor, but you know, it seems to me like there wasn't really a lot of him in the marketing, right?
Mm-hmm. I think I saw a thing that this might be. Do you have a fun fact here, or is this a fun fact I'm about to say? That Oz Perkins requested that he be taken out of the marketing completely, which I would say is a very, very wise idea. Because when I saw just the very minimal, very ambiguous teasing, I was like, all right, I'm sold. I'm gonna watch it. And then as it's getting closer, I think it was only a week before it came out that I found out Nicolas Cage is in it. I was like, wait, what? So I think that was awesome.
And this to me reminds me, this is another film that people have been comparing it to. I don't know what you thought, Rick, but this felt a lot like Seven to me. Obscuring the portrayal, the identity of the killer until they kind of do a different variation here. It's not right. It's not at the end. It's about at the midpoint. But when it's the direct encounter occurs. But they definitely held off, which I think was for the best. It created a lot of intrigue. I too did not realize Nick Cage was in this until a couple weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah, I read an article where Oz said that he borrowed a little bit from Seven with the whole idea that Longlegs kind of gives himself up, and he's revealed basically towards the middle end of the movie. So he said that he tried to borrow from different things that he liked. So we've heard Silence of the Lambs, and now we have Seven. And I feel like in both those movies, both of the antagonists, they both have a presence in the movie throughout the whole movie, even though they're both only seen for between 10 and 20 minutes in each film. And I think that is one of the coolest things, because we're always getting shown the monster, shown the killer, and it kind of takes away from the mystique that the antagonist has, and for it to be held back and just shown just a chin, or in one of my favorite scenes, Daddy, the weird guy is here again. He kind of has his eyes, his hands covering his eyes, so we don't get to see the whole picture of him with his botched plastic surgery that he has, but I feel like, those are like films that stand out to us. We always want that information, and our mind always kind of like builds that picture for us, even though most of the time it's wrong and it's a little bit more scary than what we see. But I prefer that more than anything.
It's kind of a side note, but I would say like the first scene of this leading up to the fraction of a reveal we get is one of the best opening scenes I've ever seen for a horror movie, for sure.
Yeah.
It almost attacks you with the lack of information.
Yeah.
Title pops up.
And then we know that he's going to be like, in the movie somewhere, somehow. So yet those presences just felt in each scene. And through all the horror tropes that we've known throughout the years, we know the killer's going to somewhere around there. We know he's going to pop up, but he doesn't pop up.
Our next little piece of fun facts. Now, this was just on the IMDb trivia, which like a bunch of people can contribute to. So I have no idea if it's true, but I'll say it is. The Russian title of the film translates to Soul Collector.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
I feel like that's a clue to some of the ambiguity that's within the film, because I had some questions, but we won't talk about that yet.
Or that maybe this movie is in the same grouping as a movie called Bone Collector. Maybe it's
a sequel.
It's a sequel.
It's a sequel.
That's one of your sequel films.
It's a spin-off. It's a spin-off of Bone Collector and Eight-Legged Freaks.
Yeah.
And another little fun fact. So in an interview, Mr. Oz Perkins talked about they're speaking on his cinematography direction and the way he shot the movie and whatnot, and he was kind of talking about how the wide angles and lenses and yada yada, and how he notices in a lot of movies and just a lot of cinematographers in general, they prefer to have these cropped in, like really cut at right at the top of the head, so you show like there's no head space. So he said that he's a big fan of head space and wanting to have a little bit of an idea of like what's above them. So he's always trying to shoot that way with headspace, which I think is very funny because he likes to cut off Nicolas Cage's entire face at the beginning of the film,
or just hold his lips out,
Yeah.
put his lips in frame the whole time.
But maybe that's part of the idea, is that that character is the exception to the rule, and so it feels gross. It feels unnatural.
Oh yeah, for sure.
When all these other characters are, they have all this space around them, you can see, but he almost kind of dominates the frame because it doesn't allow you to see all of them.
Definitely intentional. I have one more fun fact. Do you have any more fun facts?
I have one fun fact.
I'll save my last fun fact for last, and we can get through your guys's.
It might be your fun fact.
It's definitely not.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Are you sure, birthday girl? So my
It's
fun
not the
fact
14th.
I read.
That was yesterday.
It was yesterday. My fun fact is I read an interview that the character of Longlegs has been a character that has been brewing in his writings for a very long time, and he just didn't know where he would appear or where he could use them. And he came up with the name because he felt it was very retro, very like unnatural name, like something that he said in his terms groovy.
Very 70s.
Very 70s. And when he started writing the character, he didn't know if the character was going to be a puppet master, a doll maker, which he turned out to be. But he felt like the idea of a gift being delivered to a family and them accepting it was kind of like an interesting aspect of the character. And in his terms, he's like, it felt like, the family accepted this danger into their house, so it's technically almost their fault for letting the...
It reminds me of the vampire asking for entry.
Exactly. And one of the big reasons why he incorporated Mr. Satan,
The Dragon Ball Z character.
Dragon Ball Z character, also known as Hercule in the American version,
Damn,
into the
censorship.
script.
And the Russian version, he's just called Soul Collector. Anyway.
Yeah, Soul Collector. Is that he felt like the character Satan is more of a playful villain, that he likes to just mess with things and not be out there for world domination like we're used to. He just kind of likes to mess with the family, ruin them a little bit, and then disappear. Like, like nothing was ever there. And I feel like that is a very interesting way to go about a villain. A villain that's just trying to have fun. And he's not there to do anything but for his own enjoyment. And if that's to corrupt people or ruin people's families, like we saw at the end of the film, that to me is kind of like freaky. Whereas he tends to mess with the little picture and not the big picture, because the little picture you might not notice the little small details that are happening, and with the big picture, those little small details are a lot bigger and can be a lot noticeable.
Fair.
So let's hear your.
Do you have anything, Josiah? Any more fun facts?
Yeah, the only one that I wanted to bring up is that there's a few times where you actually see Mr. Satan in the movie. I'm not going to list where they happen, but pay very close attention, because I only caught 2 of them. There's apparently like 6 times. And then also in the final scene, apparently...
Wait. You see... What? You see him, or are we talking about glowing eyes?
You see the horned outline, like the shadowy outline of horns, like...
I don't remember this.
I saw... The first time I saw it, like, I got chills. There's at least 2 times that I know of, but apparently there's more. I'm not... Because I definitely was watching the shadows in some of those... negative space scenes in the house, especially when she's alone, when Lee Parker's alone. Okay. And there's definitely some like shadow kind of creeping onto the edge of the door frame, but there's definitely shots where you see like the full like bull horns, like legend style horns.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna have to rewatch
so that it's a little hidden subliminal there for you. And then also there's apparently in the final scene, I'm just getting this now, there's a bit where there's the clock and all 3 hands are pointed to 6. So there you go.
Look at that.
What is that supposed to mean?
No idea. I have no clue. You guys can figure that out for yourself. And then also, I'm not sure if this was yours, Brandon, but apparently Micah Monroe, the lead actress, didn't see Nick Cage until they filmed that scene between them, and that was Nick Cage's last day on set.
Nice.
So that's a way to go out with a bang, I think.
Nice. Yeah, I know. A little bonus fact is Nicolas Cage just came out for 2 weeks, and they shot for 2 weeks straight, and then he was done. So, But I guess a little side thing before my final fact is the movie $10 million budget, except apparently a decent amount, maybe even half of that. I've heard speculations that might be a little bit more than half. What went to the marketing for it. And so that 10 million is a true 10 million. Usually at the reported budget for big films, you can almost double it, at least roughly double it, when it comes to how much money they dump into the advertising of it and the marketing for it. Whereas this one, 10 million flat, that is how much it was. Now, nice. So then like half of that might have been the marketing, it might have been a little bit more. And then you have your actual production budget, and then you take half of the production budget, and that was Nicolas Cage's salary. And the rest of it was the actual film's budget. So the film itself was only like a couple million. Yeah. So that is damn impressive. Definitely an inspiration, I'd say, for sure.
It's achievable.
Yeah. My final fun fact is, do you know the true reason why his name is Longlegs?
Why is that, Brandon?
It's
There's no spiders in
it's
the movie.
a really subtle reference to the fact that Nicolas Cage is 6 foot and he has long legs.
I put on my long legs today.
No, that is an actual segue into a question. Why is his name Longlegs? Like, actually, I don't. I mean, he put on his long legs. That's a line in there. I don't understand it. Actually, it's cool. It's creepy. I like it, but I don't actually understand it.
Okay, let's go into, because again, it was funny. Long legs, for some reason, not until like right before I watched the movie, I was like, oh, Daddy Long Legs. There's a thing about the father doing the murders, and the daddy long legs, and
Yeah.
and the daddy long legs is a spider. First of all, it's a way creepier name than spider, but daddy long legs actually have such insane venom they could kill any human or animal. It's just that their pincers can't break our skin, so we're totally fine. But they have an immense amount of venom within them. But I know Oz Perkins just said, like we said earlier, is that he just chose it because it sounded creepy. I don't know if it has meaning.
You know what? Actually, that is actually a really cool point with the daddy long legs aspect of it. Because they're incredibly poisonous and venomous, and they could kill us, but they can't because they can't pierce our skin.
Mm-hmm.
Nicolas Cage's character, Longlegs, doesn't actually kill anybody. Mm-hmm. He just delivers it. So he makes the poison.
The poison.
So he is very volatile and deadly, but he doesn't pierce. He doesn't do it himself. So that is actually very fitting.
Right. I think that works.
I'll take it. So then, as far as the plot, let's rip this plot to shreds.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. I remember after I watched the movie, I was walking out, and there was like a couple behind us, and like the woman was like, "Oh, it was so good," like and then like the guy was like, "No, yeah, it was really cool. The lighting, the filmmaking, everything was really cool." He's just like, "But like the story was just lame." I was like. Ugh, like I was gagged and like I wanted to turn around and hit him. But
I had a Discord conversation with someone that like missed like part of the movie too, and it's like, how did you miss all this information? That was,
was that Hunter? Was that Hunter?
Yeah.
We're talking to you.
Yeah, and I'm like, it feels like we watched a different movie, and I was like almost like second guessing myself. I'm like, did I just like make all these little things up in my head while I was watching the movie? Yeah. Makes sense, and fill in the blanks myself. But then I was like, no, that was literally in the movie,
Yeah. Huh.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so I'm not the only one that had the interaction with someone or heard someone say it's a confusing movie.
No, yeah, a lot of people felt that way.
I don't think it's confusing. I think there's some things that are probably deliberately ambiguous, but I'm trying to unravel the meaning behind some of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a lot of unanswered questions at the end, which is good in some ways and not great in other ways. As far as my experience with the movie, it was a completely packed theater. So I was like, I had no choice. I was sitting right next to strangers and everything. At the beginning of the movie, because the fact that I hardly watched any trailers, I saw the initial teaser trailer, and then I kind of tried to avoid other trailers. I saw bits and pieces, didn't really pay that much attention, was just trying to avoid it. The intro has the aspect ratio nice and square. I don't remember exactly the specific terms of which aspect ratio it was. It was like it was shot on an 8mm whatever Super 8 film. So when it was like that, I was like, oh god, no, this isn't the whole movie, is it? I love what they did with that, but I'm not a fan of doing that for an entire film.
Do you hate the lighthouse?
I was not a fan of that aspect of the lighthouse. I will admit. So,
You don't like Zack Snyder's Justice League?
it was definitely better than other Justice League. But I mean, I don't know. I'm just if I'm gonna watch a Cube, I'd rather watch The Cube. Or maybe it's just called Cube
movie.
back in like the early 2000s or 90s, directed by somebody. That's a good movie. But yeah, so then I was very happy to be like, okay, it was just doing it for the intro. Like, okay, this makes sense, and it was pretty cool to do it with all the flashbacks.
Yeah.
But plot wise, we got our intro that introduces Nicolas Cage right off the bat, pretty much, but it just doesn't show his face. And then you got your little girl that he interacts with, which is, you can pretty much assume that it's the main character, but you're not 100% sure. And that's when he says, like, "Hey, my long legs," and just gives his Nick Cage performance, which is great. Josiah, if you want to take over this
Sure.
plot ripping and shredding.
I know we're ripping it, but I will be, I'll try to be concise with it. So we get this intro introducing this guy, this mysterious individual, and he visits this home and talks to this little girl, and then we kind of get jump scared into the title sequence. The aspect ratio changes, and we begin with Lee Harker, who's our protagonist. She's an FBI agent, classic, and then they're going door to door, her and her partner. I believe it's like one of her first times in the field doing the sort of door-to-door stuff. I think she's maybe been in the field, but she's done most of her work behind the desk. So they go and they're looking for a guy, and her partner, he's going to the doors, and she's just kind of checking the surroundings out, and then she gets a feeling, and she turns and says, he's in there. And he's like, there's no way you could know that, but, just hang tight here. He goes up, and then bang, he just gets shot right as the door opens, and she goes in and apprehends the suspect. And so right from the bat, the movie is setting up this woman has some kind of psychic ability. We're not going to spend 20 minutes trying to get you to believe it. You just have to accept that off the bat. We're going with it. Subsequently, a test ensues where the FBI seems to have a way to psychically test people. So immediately we get this kind of deep lore of they have these, obviously it's in real life. They did tests to try to do mind control and ESP and all these other things. This has been documented. But her answers to the different images that pop up actually hint towards a lot of things in the movie. There's an upside down triangle that she associates with father. There's a door, the door down to a basement perhaps. There's a piano that's in her mother's house. There's all these things that that are associated with this test, and she's basically put on the case by Agent Carter, Special Agent Carter, and he's kind of basically bringing her into this thing about Longlegs. There's all these families that keep getting murdered by Longlegs, and the reason they know it's Longlegs is because each of these incidents, the father has committed murder-suicide. He's committed familicide and then committed suicide after. Oh, I forgot I can't say it. We'll bleep that. He has unalived himself. So then, but the tricky thing is that there's no forced entry, but each of these locations across all these years have a note, a cipher, like the Zodiac Killer, and it is signed Longlegs. It's the same handwriting. So they're basically convinced there's no way this is a coincidence. We haven't released this to the public. There's no way this could be anything other than some perpetrator, and so she's put on the case. Subsequently, some more stuff happens where she returns home, and we get a really tense scene of her receiving a letter in her home when she almost runs into Longlegs, but he's stalking around the property, and he knows who she is, and he knows her name, and is leaving her cryptic notes, and she hides this from her superiors. But she is able to figure out the cipher and figure out that each of the murders and each of the dates corresponds to create an upside down triangle, which is demonic in nature because it is the inverted. And so
Inverted Trinity, right?
the inverted trinity, yeah.
So
Ready
that
for
was
me.
that was one thing I was a little bit confused on. It's like, okay, yeah, you do that. What's exactly the purpose? Like specifically with the dates, it's like, okay, yeah, if you have a calendar, you can connect it like that, but like, okay, and
This is the thing I wanted. I figured we discussed it at some point, but obviously, I think the two major things with this movie that I think are confusing people is that the dates seem to imply some sort of ritual, like something is being accomplished, and it revolves around this specific birthday, January 14th. I could be wrong. I don't think we ever get an explanation on the numerology of 14 or that specific date or why that is significant at all. Ever.
Correct, yeah.
Aside from the fact that, and Rick, I need you to check me on this.
If I remember.
Lee Harker, was she the first or the third? Because I'm misremembering if she was like the missing piece in like this chain where there was two before, or was she the first, and therefore since it's her birthday, these murders on the 14th have to line up with her birthday.
I feel like she was the first.
Okay.
And she was the only one that didn't get murdered
Yeah.
because she was protected.
Yes.
And from there on, I believe that she was the genesis of the type of girl that they were looking for. And it shows you as well that she didn't have a father figure in her life.
Right.
Or she does.
She
but
does. She does.
he shows up on her birthday.
So was that part of the equation that he needed a father figure, and so that's like the real reason that he spared her, was because there was no father?
I think so, because we'll discuss it, but the mechanics behind these familicides, I'll say, is the father perpetrating it. And this is the second thing that I think is confusing people.
Yeah.
Is thematically there's this establishment of this father figure, and from what I can interpret, the father figure killing the family and specifically the daughter, because as soon as this item, the doll, enters into the picture, he has overcome with this urge to prevent them from growing up, from being corrupted by the world. And so in a sick way, he's trying to keep them as the doll. And so by killing the daughter, the doll is now alive, and it will never grow up, and it will never age.
Forever young.
Forever young. And so...
And then we hear Bob Dylan start singing, Forever young. Be forever
So,
young.
the movie sets that up, and the reason I think people get confused is because of this difference with the first one, is that it's the maternal aspect that becomes the antagonist, the negative, and there is no father figure.
Yeah.
What if? Because so I think Oz Perkins. I don't think Oz Perkins is lying or hiding anything, but I think a big influence that maybe he isn't even aware of is Rosemary's Baby. Because what I think is that if there is no father, what if Lee is in fact a child of a unholy union between her mother and the devil, and that's why she has this psychic ability, because she's attuned to evil. I know they established because the doll, like the evil, is like
The
in her
sphere
head.
the sphere has a part of them in it.
But
Also-
to me, with the Hail Satan stuff, that reminds me of Rosemary's Baby, like 1,000%.
Definitely. Also, like while you were talking about, the inverse and father and everything like that, the first thought that came into my head is, so, the role of the father in most families, which, is starting to become a fluid thing now, in society, but traditionally, the father is the protector of the family. He is the person that is supposed to keep the family safe and make sure he, what's the word I'm looking for? Provides for the family. Whereas, the inverse of that is to destroy and to pull apart his family. And that is exactly what the fathers are doing in Longlegs. So you can talk about the inverse is being like, almost like hammered into their head by the doll in the sphere. And we see that when they do the autopsy of the doll and, break the doll open, that the as soon as the coroner, I think it was, that puts that little scanner, the detective, him, kind of like feels something, and he's like, no, move that out of the way, I can hear something. And so it's like, they weren't going for the daughter or anything like that. They were going for the aspect of the protector of the family and taking that role away.
And
so
we know that with the with the satanic, with the dark magic, it's all about inverting. It's about corrupting or doing the opposite. So it's hence inverted imagery. I mean, even the credits of the film are inverted, which honestly was was actually pretty creepy. Like when the credits started, I was like, oh, that's not right. Like that's a little messed up.
As soon as the whole idea with the birthday party that started coming up when in the beginning, and Agent Carter, not Captain America's love interest, but Agent Carter of Longlegs,
Longlegs love interest. No, I was kidding.
The Longlegs love interest, but
I do also love Longlegs.
Yeah.
I choose the path down the middle. I'm not an ass man. I'm not a breast guy. I'm the long legs guy.
We'll be here all week. But the whole idea is when I started putting little things together with the scene with the scanner and the detective going, the birthday coming up and Lee needs to be invited. The daughter wanted Lee to invite it. I started already putting everything together. It is very, very a straightforward movie. There's nothing that is hidden from you. Everything is told to you. It's almost handed to you on a platter, but you're almost so tense and worried about what's happening in the background. When is Longlegs going to show up? When is Satan going to show up, if he ever does? When is the next killing going to happen? How is Lee fit into this? How is she clairvoyant? You have all this stuff in your head that you're thinking of. You almost miss every story beat going through. And I feel like that might be one of the reasons why people feel like this movie is confusing and they might have, lost a few plot points.
See, it's so strange to me because, I mean, I remember when I heard the plot point of, Carter has a daughter, I'm like, okay, well, this is where the movie's going to end.
Yeah.
But, the interesting thing is when you get to the third act, because this movie is split into part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 3 is literally just, I'm going to monologue, explain to you everything.
Mm-hmm.
The movie is not trying to like you're saying, it's not really trying to hide very much. It doesn't explain the direct mechanics of the dolls.
Yeah.
The only thing I really have questions on, this is kind of jumping to the end, is I think the big thing that is confusing people in my mind, or maybe it's just confusing me, Longlegs is a doll maker. The dolls are the vessel for how this gets introduced. The movie is not claiming this is the only method for Satan to mess with people, because obviously he has his hands in a lot of pots.
Mm-hmm.
However, Longlegs kills himself and seems to be satisfied with the results. Obviously, we still have Lee's mother in the picture, but can she make the dolls? Is so because people are talking about the ending being ambiguous.
Yeah.
I was curious about your guys' takes. To me, it was well, he's dead, so at least the doll problem isn't around anymore.
I feel like Longlegs had already set his plan into motion.
Yeah.
He no longer knew he had to do anything more. And she says, this one date I cannot figure out what it is, and that was Captain America's love interest's daughter's birthday. And so that was the one point where I think I felt like Nicolas Cage was like, or Longlegs, I should say, was like, all right, I've done my purpose, I've done my deed. If I live any longer, they're going to try to extract as much information from me as possible.
Mm.
And I'd rather sacrifice myself to my father, Mr. Downstairs, and go out that way. Because I believe he had that connection with Lee, and Lee would somehow be able to, take little bits of information here and there, because I feel like some of the information that she was getting from Longlegs, he wasn't willingly giving up. She had that connection with him, and it was extracted from him.
Interesting. I'll have to rewatch that scene because that puts a new spin on it. I didn't think of it that way.
I feel like he didn't want to give up the mom as the accomplice, but this being a satanic movie, and with the whole idea that we were talking about earlier, where Satan likes to play and likes to, just ruffle feathers and mess around with things, I feel like Satan was messing around, and out came, the idea that the mother could be the accomplice, which is why Lee and a other agent went to check up on her mother. They had no real idea on if the mother was an accomplice or not.
I think we need to rapid fire the rest of the plot real quick, though, for anybody that has not seen the movie and is confused as to what we're talking about. We got like halfway through that, and then we have talked about the rest of the plot without actually explaining anything.
Good.
Do you recall where you left off, Josiah?
Yeah. So, essentially, begins this arc of Lee ending up at where the initial murders began, the farmhouse with the priest.
Yeah, so she is able to decipher the notes, with the Bible.
Yes.
I don't exactly recall, really how she did, other than psychic.
It kind of skips over it, honestly.
You made a big goofy goof.
They did.
Lee isn't the only surviving person.
Oh, yeah.
Longlegs.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, Sabrina the Teenage Witch is still around.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Corinne or whoever. She ends up at a mental hospital.
Oh, yeah.
She survived the farmhouse debacle.
But then she's, in love with him.
So again, here's the thing: is the doll? This is where they find the doll. It's in the floorboards of the attic, which I think is interesting because it's like I'm trying to think if there's an inverse thing where it's Mr. Downstairs, but it's in the attic under the floorboard. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. But her and Carter, yeah.
I was gonna say, I think here too is where we see a little bit of the satanic, look. It was when they were revealing this doll under the floorboards. But go on, please.
This doll also has the ability to kind of blink, like its eyes will open.
Oh yeah. I wasn't sure if that was done just for the cut, for the Hollywood extreme drama at that moment, because you don't see them acknowledge it blink. It blinks and then it cuts.
No, yeah, the coroner just kind of says, "Oh, this is so well made," so you're supposed to just infer, because later on, anytime there's scenes with the black sheets and the different dolls' eyes would open underneath the sheets.
Yeah,
which I remember them using for the teasers and stuff. But again, forgive me for kind of crunching this last bit of the plot together. But essentially, what happens is that Lee ends up going back through some old Polaroids and then unlocks the memory because Carter basically puts her onto the fact that your mother on January 13th called in a police report that a strange man was stalking around your home. And so putting two and two together, and then she eventually finds her old Polaroids, and she finds one that she took of Longlegs. And so the manhunt begins, and they discover him and find out that his name is Dale Ferdinand Cobble. To me, Cobble indicates that he is a brick in the Church of Satan. I don't know if that's a stretch, like he's a cobblestone. Anyway, and so they catch him. He's kind of been like, we've had brief snippets of him doing weird things like screaming in his car and singing and going about his day to day. And so they catch him, and they have the big interrogation scene, like what the whole movie's been leading to. And
is it the part where he turns on his like full on Marilyn Monroe singing to Mr. Kennedy, "Happy Birthday"?
It's a
Yes.
birthday girl.
He looks more like Marilyn Manson, but he definitely was channeling Marilyn Monroe more. So I think he was mixing his metaphors.
He also kind of looks like The Weeknd when The Weeknd did his little special plastic surgery thing.
Yeah, and I think like another person recently told us too that Longlegs looked like a post-op Gina Davis after she had a little plastic surgery.
Also, Madonna.
Yeah. And
I'm curious about this. You guys definitely were stating it that it was failed plastic surgery.
Yeah,
I never quite understood
that.
I was not sure if he was supposed to be slightly albino or what the deal was. So
I feel like the makeup
late term
was
fun
more
fact. That's what Oz Perkins said. Yeah, he said he wanted
to dull his makeup on.
Yeah,
because he had like the white face paint. He had his lips basically painted. So since he was a doll maker, I feel like that was his whole.
Oz Perkins wanted him to look like a failed plastic surgery, and him to be like, that's his thing, is he's like obsessed with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. I was gonna do like a weird plastic surgery Hollywood Satan. Okay, yeah. No.
Yeah.
Always goes back to Satan and Hollywood.
Always goes back.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of elaborates. Again, he talks about Mr. Downstairs and the man down the stairs. And if you haven't figured it out by this point, it's Satan. He's a full-on Satanist, and they have the funniest line in the movie when Carter says, we can't just arrest him for being a Satanist. This is the United States of America. Which I thought was very funny.
Yeah.
He hasn't killed anyone. It's not enough.
Yeah.
So she interrogates him, and then he reveals all this information. She's gleaning all this information. He chooses, after being Marilyn Monroe, to bash his nose till it essentially, I'm imagining, goes into his brain or something. 'Cause he, and he dies. And at this point, the audience is like, "What?" Because they think there's some kind of accomplice going on, and it's revealed because throughout the whole thread through the movie, from the very start, Lee has this relationship where she's calling her mom, not calling her mom. There's always this awkward thing where it's like, "Hi, Mom. Lee? Yeah, your only daughter." And then that keeps going. She goes to visit her mom. Her mom, who was this devout Christian, now says prayers don't do a goddamn thing. So obviously something's not right here.
Yeah.
She says she doesn't remember anything about a strange man being on the property. So immediately your radar should be going off, because the twist is that Lee's mother is in fact the accomplice, and she's been the one actually delivering the dolls. And not only that, and probably the scariest part of the movie, in my opinion, because they mentioned earlier when Longlegs is in interrogation that he's literally right under Lee. Well, ironically, she went to visit her mother's house, and he was in the basement the entire time, presumably.
Yeah, there was a previous scene in the movie where Lee looks at this door and tries to go in it, but it's locked, and there's all this vermin kind of scrolling underneath the door, So it just shows you that, evil was underneath the whole time.
Bum bum bum.
So yeah, that's part of the twist, is he's literally been in living with her mother, in the basement. And he crafts these dolls, puts the ball in them that is evil. And there is actually this doll of Lee, and after her mother takes the shotgun and blows this other agent away, you know, Lee, you know, she eventually wakes up and sees her mother. Well, no,
Well,
sorry. She
so
doesn't wake up and see her mother. She comes out of the house.
Well, so she has like a connection to this doll of her.
Yes.
And so she shoots the doll, and then you see black smoke, like very faint black smoke, come out of Lee's head. And
It reminded me of like David Lynch, actually.
Yeah.
yeah. So and then she passes out because of that. She gets all lightheaded, stumbles, and passes out, which I found very interesting. I mean, like, what do you guys make of that? This whole, like, she has a literal connection to this doll.
Yeah.
Like a voodoo doll? Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah. Well, here's my theory, is that the doll affects each member of the family. It's not just the father. It seems to create, like, this connection, this almost hypnotic connection with whatever it is a duplicate of, you know, the daughter. It kind of pacifies the mother, almost makes the mother want to die, and then it makes the father murderous. So it affects each of the family members in a different way.
And they also said with the child, which I think was one of the creepiest lines of the whole thing, is that the doll makes the child look away and makes the child forget. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, so the doll has been repressing Lee's memories. And, you know, given the performance, it feels like it was kind of creating this fog, this kind of muted personality in her.
Because like, the whole time Micah Monroe was like playing this character that had, you can tell like some kind of like what's the word I'm looking for, like trauma in the past that's affected her, and she's been like she's like a straight stone cold person that's like straight to the point. She doesn't joke. She's pretty emotionless throughout the whole movie, and it's not till like towards the end you see her, you know, give emotion once the doll is, you know, killed or, you know, dispatched, her doll.
Yeah.
And another thing with the doll that I don't know if a lot of us missed, but once they open up the sphere of Sabrina the Teenage Witch's doll, we hear later on that she took a cement dive from on top of the asylum that she was in. So did that, because when we saw her previously, she was completely in love with Longlegs. She would do anything for him. She talked about how she would kill for Longlegs.
Yeah, they just assumed that Longlegs told her to kill herself.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe there's this connection to the doll.
I think they, when they opened up that sphere, they severed the connection between her and Longlegs. She was able to remember everything, her family dying and stuff, so all that trauma hit her, so that made her go take the cement swim and, you know, end her life.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, with Micah Monroe's character, when the doll was severed, I feel like that's when she was able to regain her emotions and is able to, you know, go after this case.
So I have a question. Her mother destroys the doll, so that it goes against the plan.
Mm-hmm.
But then later she's still going along with the plan. I understand that's like the deal.
Yeah, because she was still trying to protect her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then... But the doll being destroyed is not a violation of that, apparently.
Well, so... let's say that maybe as part of this plan, I don't know if it's maybe something to pay attention to when she does draw the lines between the calendar, was Captain America's love interest detective family, were they the last ones on the plan? And that's why Longlegs is like, it's good to dispatch myself. My accomplice will finish the job, and then she also knows that I only have one job left, and she'll let me just take out this doll. It'll like incapacitate the only person standing in the way, which is her daughter, and then she immediately goes over to to take care of the last piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I also
Okay.
feel like maybe the mother knew that since she was basically the main hired gun and would get charged with these murders, maybe the mother did this because that was her way out of the situation that she had put herself in as
Uh-huh.
well. I wonder if that's where he was going with that.
Okay, so that makes sense. Like destroying the doll to incapacitate her, so she can, because she's been found out and she doesn't. The big thing is like she does try to kill her at the end, but that might be due to the whole thing because they kind of, again in the movie there's this subtext about the mother resenting the daughter for almost causing her to sacrifice and suffer, um, and the mother knows that the world's gonna do. Yeah, well, I mean, because so again, we reach the point where in the plot, this is the ending sequence. Carter and his family, bum bum bum, they're the final victims. The doll is there. They're the only ones there for the birthday party. And then Lee gets there, and her mother's there in the habit, and the
What kind of
climax
habit
is,
does she have?
huh?
What kind of habit does she have?
A nun's habit.
Oh, I thought she
Yeah.
had like some kind of like compulsive habit.
Well, she does to be a terrible person.
Exactly.
This is way better than the nun. Just throwing that out there. No,
Best iteration of a nun in a film I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
best iteration of a nun in a horror film I've definitely seen in the last 5 years. But Carter is under the spell, and again, the mother is like almost like the Stepford wife, like, yep, I'll go get murdered if that's what is required of me. So she gets stabbed in the kitchen, and then the father comes back, and then
Yeah. It has the
you're gonna
the-
stay in the kitchen. Bitch.
Yeah, and it had the darkest but funniest line of like,
Yeah.
I'll just go to the kitchen, I'll be right back. No, you won't. It's like,
I'll be right back. You'll still be in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god.
It was very funny. But so Lee has no choice. Carter's coming at her with her gun. She shoots her superior, and immediately, again, part of the reason this ending is so dark is that you can't prove any of this shit. So like in the eyes of everybody, it's gonna look like she
Well,
killed. Well,
she
I
can
guess like
he did stab his wife. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And then her own mother came at her with a knife in her hand. That's a fact.
Okay,
And
you're right.
So she's gonna get off clean, but still.
or at least better off. But
Yes.
And
but
then
she
tries
doesn't-
to.
yeah, she doesn't have enough ammo to destroy the doll, and then we get a cutaway to not any footage from earlier, but an alternate take of footage earlier of Longlegs in the interrogation room, and he's ends the movie with a "Hail Satan." So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you guys think that lasting like frame at the end of her like, kind of looking like past the camera? What do you feel like that meant?
I've been going over it many times. The doll has only been shown to affect family members because the priest wasn't affected in that one murder. So all the rules of the film are telling me that it shouldn't affect Lee Harker just because she's taking care of the kid now.
Yeah.
It shouldn't do that, according to the movie.
Mhm.
But if we're going off my theory that she's like a progeny of the devil, perhaps it could be influencing her.
Well, so I would say that her trying to shoot the doll, I would say that she's not out of ammo. I would say it's like jamming her gun, and it's just not working for some reason. It's an actual like spooky aspect because there's no reason that should be out of ammo. She only shot it like 3 times, and
Didn't she have a 6-shooter though?
yeah, she did not shoot it 6 times. She shot the father, I think, only twice, maybe 3 tops, and then she shot her mom once.
Okay.
So she still has a couple of bullets, and it's not working. So I would say there's something, not really sure why, but there is something with the spooky magic aspect of the doll and Satan that it does not. It's stopping her from shooting. And then as far as like looking on maybe it's trying to imply something of the devil coming out of the doll. Maybe she just sees the devil, or maybe the devil's transferring into her, or something. Who knows?
The way I think that Occam's razor to me suggests, if we look at the themes of the film, what the ending is simply saying is that Longlegs is just one leg of the devil's manipulations. He's got hundreds of these operations going on in all these different places. Man, this is starting to sound like real life. No, but he's got hundreds of different operations all over the world, but they don't necessarily have to be this setup. They can be different setups as long as things are inverted, things are corrupted. The devil is constantly working. And so the ending is implying that she, like, Longlegs' thing may be ended, but all those families were destroyed. And depending on how nihilistic you want to be about the movie, because Longlegs has a line kind of implying that everyone who dies in the ritual is damned, even the children.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it depends on if you want to view that as true or not.
So perhaps the whole idea of her being able to shoot them but not be able to shoot the doll, and it's stopping, it's trying to say something that you can stop and kill the servants of the devil, but you'll never stop the devil himself.
Right. I think that's the simplest way to view the ending of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I view a very simple ending. To me, like, I felt very what's it called? The Graduate. I felt like it was a similar ending to The Graduate, where all this stuff's happened, the devil's won, and now what are we gonna do? What's next? We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, she did save the daughter, so we can say that the ritual doesn't complete.
But Longlegs is one. Satan has taken this girl and destroyed her family.
Yeah.
And the thing is, now that's why, like, Michael Monroe kind of like looks and says, "Okay, we lost, but what now?"
Yeah.
What else is he gonna do? We've seen him do this. What else can he do?
Like,
I've tried to kill this, blow this doll to smithereens, as some people would say, but I'm unable to. I'm unable to defeat the devil with the power that I have.
So I think this is the question I've been wanting to get to this entire time, because I want your guys' feedback. I'm going to pose the question I posed originally. Given the context of this, is this a put the fear of God in you? Like, is this a movie that's going to make you realize that you cannot defeat the devil with your own power? Or is this a movie that is very darkly saying maybe that not that there is no God, but that Satan always wins? What is the film saying, do you think?
The film is saying, to me at least, that there is corruption around us, and we always will unknowingly let it in if we're not careful. And that the things close to us and the things that we see as protection, or as things that will not harm us, in this movie being a religious person, a nun, and we invite this thing in, it can still harm us if we're not careful, So I think what it's saying is that we need to be very mindful and thoughtful of every move that we make, because we never know when one little, step might be the wrong step and might send us into, a downward spiral to see our friend Mr. Downstairs,
Yeah.
The devil is in every house. He's just in your basement, so you have to keep it locked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. So Mr. Downstairs is what Hercule is called throughout the whole movie. And so, who was downstairs the whole time? Longlegs. So is Longlegs, was he corrupted by Satan?
It's safe to say that.
And was he...
Well,
I know, but was he
Satan?
the avatar of Satan? You know,
Because he doesn't age.
Which would
No.
be fair as to why he just kills himself, because he's leaving his avatar.
exactly,
He will take another form for another plan and another time.
Yeah.
exactly, and that's why I feel the ending that I propose with it. Everything is all over. Satan has won this game that he likes to play, because we have that interview piece that I read, at least, that Oz Perkins said that the devil likes to play and kind of just mess things up and then disappear and leave.
I mean, yeah, part of the thing with the dolls was because he likes to watch.
Exactly.
Hence
So-
the eyes opening. Yeah.
Yeah, it had more to do than just that, but that was an aspect.
Yeah. So does that mean that this is the end of this story, and that's why it ended so abrupt? Because there's nothing else for Longlegs. There's nothing else for this avatar of Hercule to move on to. The story is done. It's over with.
You
Right?
know, that's actually a good point. At the very end there, it's from the POV once again of the doll looking at her as she's trying to shoot it, and then it cuts because it's like at that point the devil just left.
Yep, he was done. He had fun.
He's
he's
just like,
gone.
yeah,
I think if we view Longlegs as an avatar, or at least being possessed by,
Not the blue avatar, but an
Jake
avatar.
Sully.
no.
I really
Avatar.
liked the part where he pulled out his braid and made sweet love to several things in the film.
I like
Dude,
the
you're
part
so
where he got a
dumb.
bad
That's the wrong
Netflix
movie.
remake.
Dude, you're dumb. Wrong movie.
See, I prefer the bad Netflix remake. No, okay. But I think the ending, if we view it from that point of view, him saying very like joking, like "Hail Satan," and he kisses
Yep.
at the camera, it seems like that's something like you would say almost in reference to yourself, like ha ha ha, like like almost a game. And again, if we are calling back to Rosemary's Baby, again, like in almost a cinematic way, Oz Perkins is saying that the devil will take on these different forms in all these different fictional settings, if not the real world.
Mhm.
The corruption will always exist in some form. And so in Longlegs is the embodiment of all darkness in this story.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's an interesting thought. So yeah, very much Trojan horse. It is constantly all these different avatars and disguises. That's kind of like the theme of the movie, is everything being like a vessel, hiding its true form to be able to get inside under false pretense. I mean, because that's also the very kind of context of Longlegs. He's changing his own face because he's trying to, who knows, he's trying to disguise himself. He doesn't feel like what he sees in the mirror is actually what's under his skin, so he's trying to change his own face. And so everything comes down to different forms of a Trojan horse, of trying to get into something under false pretense. So then, the end of the film, the very last thing of him doing a little "Hail Satan" and a little kiss, the film itself was a Trojan horse to get Satan into your life.
I see, yeah. So and with the inverted credits, it's almost saying like the movie itself was the spell to the avatar of Longlegs. He's dead, but now he's alive because he exists like in the film. Like the film is Longlegs. It's called Longlegs, and so he is the film.
Mhm.
And so
in your head now.
He's in your head. He's reaching out from the film to
Yeah, the film itself is a ritual.
yeah.
And one thing I just thought about, Longlegs, and if we correspond him as Satan in this movie, if he's corrupted by Satan, maybe that's why he was doing the plastic surgery. He was, obsessed with trying to make his real, face come out, and because of
Right.
Mr. Bible guys that know a little bit more about Bibles than I do. Aren't you, when you're possessed by a demon or a daemon or Damon something.
Demon is fine.
Damon, my best friend down the corner, but don't they always somehow always try to come out from their host, and their faces and their body will dysmorph from? Isn't that a thing?
Not really explicitly in the Bible, but there is always a thing where there's definitely some correlations that I've found between madness and possession, and I have argued many times on this podcast in the past that certain types of madness would be indistinguishable from possession or would function the same. So they do talk about having a crazed look, but it's never. But as far as I remember, the possession stuff never was their face morphing. But that is obviously something in other cultures and
the whole
I think
the whole idea of growing, people growing horns and stuff. That's with the put the thought in my head that
Yeah, the I think kind of the big origin of that, of somebody morphing and changing, is because there is a simple but complicated and don't quite understand it. Who you are as a person does have a very physical manifestation, and your facial expressions, your personality really comes out in your face. And so when that changes and there's something else in there and it's not actually you, well, then that is going to have a different effect on your face, a different physical manifestation on the way you look and whatnot. A different, everybody knows it as far as the look in someone's eyes. What did it tell you? That is not something you can really put a factual conclusion on. It is just the feeling you got. The eyes said this to me. There's so much more to that, and so a very spiritual aspect, you could say. It's a pretty common thing for people to say the eyes are the windows of the soul. And that's literally they say that in a Key and Peele sketch with the I said bitch. It's I looked at this woman into the windows of her soul. They say that in there, and so it is very common knowledge about that. So when the eyes change, the soul changes.
And the doll's eyes look different under the black veil.
Yeah,
the eyes change.
Okay, here. What was the? I think they did talk about it and address it in the movie, but how does it work when they put the black veil on it? They just happened to do that, or was there a reason?
The movie never indicates any reason why the eyes are activated, other than the doll maker did something to make it.
Well, just as far as getting the black veil put on there. Because there's plenty of shots of that. I just don't recall why.
If he says something, he's it's something about along the lines of it's going to be a little dark, but you're used to the dark, or you have a little dark in you.
He literally does it he does it, but then it's also there's shots of it in these houses with the black veil on there. But it's so is the family putting the black veil on it? I don't know.
Because it comes in a box, but obviously to take it out of the box, I don't think it would have the veil on it in the box. I'd have to rewatch the film.
I do think, okay, here's a thought. I do think that there's a lot of subtext to it. Even though a lot of things are very much stated, there is subtext, maybe some ritual context, and different things as far as what they're trying to say, simply because you have Lee, she has this veil over her eyes, right, as far as her memory, maybe some disassociation or just memory blockage of her trauma in the past. And then there's this black veil, which you could say, that's the physical trauma, that's a physical representation of blocking out memories, blacking out memories. And then when the doll is shot, her black veil is lifted, she passes out, and then has clarity.
You know, I haven't seen these films, these recent films, but it seems like recently we've had a return to the demonic. We've had this new Exorcist movie, the first Omen, which I heard wasn't bad. We have this movie. It seems like it could be like just a cultural, revisiting of these concepts, but it seems to me, at least with this film, that they're trying to make this concept of the devil, of Hercule, scary again. And I think it's worked. Most of the pushback on this film has been people who came in with expectations that were not satisfied. But me not having built up those expectations, I think it satisfied that kind of dread, because a lot of the violence is off screen. A lot of the it is more of a thriller, but just the idea of the darkness that lurks near every home, that wants to get in. It's waiting to get in everywhere.
I read a review that talked about this, that a lot of people, when they watched the film, they're like, this is not what the the advertisement campaign presented to me. This is not the movie that was promised. The campaign was so well done. The campaign was this, the campaign was that. And one person's like, well, you fell in love with the spectacle of the film and not with what the film actually was.
Right.
And that, in a sense, is like almost the idea of, the devil. You fell in love with the devil and not, the idea of what it actually is. You don't even understand the idea of what it is, but you fell in love with it.
They took the doll in expecting one thing, and they got the film, and it wasn't what they expected.
The trailers was the nun bringing the movie into your home, and then you watched it, and it was something completely different.
Let's follow that logic, right? We already talked about the film being Longlegs himself, being this. The film is almost the doll. So like the if the advertisements, it's the nun saying this is the scariest movie of the decade. It's tempting you with these ideas that are just coming, and then the film itself is much more is less focused on scaring you and more focused on making you unsettled.
Yeah.
And long legs, it's the film's long legs stretching across the nation for everyone to watch. It's in several places at once.
Oh yeah.
And like we've already gotten like this whole idea a couple years ago with the movie what was it called? What's the movie with Jordan Peele that he just did recently?
Nope. Nope.
Nope.
Us.
Yep.
I know. I just meant I'm not going to tell you.
No. Hell no.
Please tell me. Please. But we already had this like idea presented to us, the whole idea that we get caught up with the spectacle, the whole like big picture, the thing that's like bright and colory, the thing that just jumps out at our face, TMZ, Hollywood, all these things that we get caught up with, but we don't even try to understand the central idea or the story of what's going on.
Right.
We think of something and we're like, ooh, that's beautiful. But when then you get the idea, you're like, oh, that's kind of lame. And then you discard it and move on to the next colorful thing, It's like the whole idea with, like, I think sports. I think that's why sports are such an intoxicating thing. And, they're almost cult-like entities, because we get caught up with the spectacle of what sports is and what these athletes give us. And that we don't really want to, like, synthesize why we like the game. We just like the spectacle.
Yeah, it's we just always want to romanticize everything.
Exactly.
Even romance itself. The Notebook. There, he waited all this time for you and wrote letters and blah blah blah, and like all these like things like that really just like, oh, he did these crazy things for you, because he loved you so much. And a lot of these stories, they'll have the little bit of relationship struggles that are in there, but they won't really show the nitty gritty hard parts of a relationship that you have to truly love each other to get through. If you're just all about the romance, you're not going to get through the hard parts of the relationship.
Exactly.
And so we do that with everything, including the devil. You know, everyone wants to, especially Hollywood, they love to romanticize the devil. There's, you know, there's literally a TV show called Lucifer, and it's like portraying him as like a good guy, and like he's like, yeah, I'm the devil, but you know, like I'm kind of romantic and like
I'm so hot.
exactly, he's all sexy and everything, and like you know, and then even like you know, I hear it often where like people like to point out like, oh, the devil, Lucifer, he used to be God's favorite, he was the most beautiful angel, blah blah blah, all this like projection that they put on the devil and everything, and it's
we
just
love
like
a rebel.
He's a rebel, you know. God just doesn't understand him. He's the real victim.
He's like my
in
dad.
This scenario. Exactly.
I'm like Lucifer because God's like my dad. He doesn't understand.
Yeah, it's just so edgy and cool. Just because I don't want to vibe with, you know, your squeaky clean attitude, and I say naughty words, and like I'm sexy, you know. It's like okay, but then there's stuff like child sacrifice and absolute terrible things that have to do with the devil, and you don't want to talk about that, though. You know, we're just going to talk about, ooh, that's not so sexy. Whoa, you know?
Yeah, well, there's a reason why this is set in the 90s, and I will say as like a funny anecdote, I at first didn't get why they had the giant portrait of Bill Clinton on the wall. Like, they kept having him in the scene, and then I realized, oh, it's because it's a period piece. That they have to, like, hammer it into your head that it's a period.
Yeah, I know up until that scene, I was like, I feel like this is set, like, back then. I'm pretty sure it is, but I wasn't, like, 100%. And then when they did that, I was like, oh, okay.
1 second, guys. My dog's going crazy. I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah. We should also end this very soon. We're at hour and 22 minutes. Which also means I am not going to add B-roll to this. This is just, I'm just going to export it and everything.
That's okay, you know?
Yeah, I'm fine with it, but just say.
I'm fine with it, just like, you fucked up.
You fucked up.
Oh, now you're fucking bleeding and fucking dying.
Where's Rabbit's
foot? Where's Rabbit's foot? Rabbit's foot. It's not in Paris 5.
It's not in Paris. Is it behind your middle tooth, Tom? What's behind your middle tooth?
Scientology, bro.
I'm gonna pull out your middle tooth. If there's not a rabbit's foot behind it, then I'm gonna pull out
your
wife's.
I've seen people forming Scientology.
Because he hears the devil outside because we're talking about...
He's a good dog.
Yeah.
Probably.
Or maybe...
She can't get excited or she'll like choke to death because she has like a collapsed trachea.
Oh, Jesus.
Jeez.
She was like freaking out. She's like, ah!
Oh, God. So she's like, gets excited and
and then her trachea like basically collapses on her and she can't breathe.
Good Lord.
And I have to take her to the fucking vet.
All right.
Jesus.
But okay. So where were we at? Sorry, guys.
We were wrapping up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this up. Up.
I was telling Josiah that I'm not going to add B-roll to this. This is too long.
So, do we have any closing thoughts on the film Longlegs? Rick?
You know, I honestly think so far this year, I haven't really seen a lot of 2024 movies per se, but this has to be my favorite movie of the year. You know, it was entertaining. It was one of those movies that just made me feel so uncomfortable. Like, I felt like TMI, but I felt like I almost had to like pee the whole time because I felt like there was something that was like holding tight the whole time, and then I was just so uncomfortable. And you know, Nicolas Cage's presence, you know, which is awesome, amazing. It was like Hannibal Lecter, like where he was basically felt throughout every scene he was in, even though he wasn't even present until the end of the second act, basically. But I think it's just an amazing movie that, you know, a lot of people oversold in their heads because of the idea of what that campaign was. That advertising campaign was amazing. Probably the best that we've seen since probably Cloverfield, or I know some people were big into the Batman Dark Knight one
Dark Knight had a
when
great
it came
one.
out, but this was like the best advertisement campaign that I've probably ever seen. And for a small movie that, you know, we basically deciphered that it was a $2.5 million movie, that in order for it to, you know, get a big opening like it had and basically made all its money back to give an auteur like Oz Perkins another chance to, you know, make us something that's, you know, great. He's like one of those filmmakers that I always thought that was going to make something good and great. And I've watched every one of his films, you know, from Blackcoat's Daughter to, you know, the Pretty Little Thing That Lives in the House to Gretel and Hansel, and now Longlegs. He has like that slow, methodical, burning, tense film, like perfectly, like, you know, under his thumb. He can make that film without even like thinking. So I am that one person that will be there next, where he's making, I think it's called Monkey Shines, the Stephen King movie, I think it is.
Yeah, he's doing a Stephen
Monkey
King adaptation.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not hear about this. Okay.
And it's coming out this year, I think.
Yeah. February, I think 16th.
Oh, yeah, okay. So never mind. It's the beginning of
this
next
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
this year.
Basically in the next year, but so I will be there in the seat looking forward to it, because I feel like he's one of our next, or one of our big auteurs that we have available, with, you know, with Ari Aster and Eggers and, you know, I can never pronounce his name right, so everybody will hate me.
Yorgos?
What's that?
Oh, Yorgos, what's his name?
Lanthimos, and then we had the guy that did Dune,
Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah. We got Refn too, to some extent, but he's a little bit more polarizing than the others. But I think we're at that spot where we were in the 50s, whereas the public is getting tired of these studio films being churned out, and we got this nice French New Wave into American New Wave that was going on, where we're at that point where we're about to have our second wave of the American, you know, directors, or they're not all American directors now, but we're having that second wave of directors that are going to kill off the Marvel movies, which I think a lot of us have been waiting for a long, long time.
Thank God.
Save me a little bit, to save you guys from me, you know, going on more of a long-winded spiel. I will pass the torch on to Brandon.
It was a very good movie, big Hollywood movie. And it was, but it wasn't so big. And I think it is a great testament to story is king. You do not need to dump a ginormous budget into a bunch of stupid, useless stuff. I would, if anyone has made it this far and hasn't seen the movie, I would say it's worth checking out. I don't know why you kept watching. But it is also worth checking out with a bit of a warning, as far as depending on where you are at in your life. There is a darkness about this movie that I would say be careful with it, because, you know, you are what you eat, you are what you consume, and it is darkness. So make sure that you're in a good spot in your life. If you're gonna watch a dark film like this, you do not want to just add to the darkness if you're already in that sort of spot. It's a very serious film, and I know that after I watched it, like, I was pretty, like, I was with my buddy, and like, he's like, that was really good. He's like, did you not like it? Like, you're not really talking about it. And like, I did like it, but there was a certain level of, like, I wouldn't say, ooh, I was disturbed, like, not for like a catchy way, but there was a part of it that kind of disturbed me, because it touched on certain aspects that just felt a little too real. Understanding that, like, yeah, there's very much fictional things going on here, it is still just like knees deep in that very real dark aspect of things. One thing that we'll keep repeating with this channel is the fact that it doesn't matter. There is a certain extent that it does not matter if certain things like the devil and whatnot is real. There are people that believe he is and will commit acts in his name and do awful things because they think he's real. So there is a certain level that it doesn't matter what's real and what's not real, and people still do these types of things. So on that level, I would say it is very disturbing, and it's very sad, honestly. But if you like movies like Silence of the Lambs and all that kind of stuff, very good. Definitely Buffalo Bill vibes with Nicolas Cage, a very extreme version. If anything, I wish that he dialed it back just a little bit here and there. Just a little schmidge. Because it was just like almost, I've heard this repeated a couple times with people talking about it. Felt like a different movie. Like he was not in the same tone as the movie. And I'm sure that, I'm not blaming Nicolas Cage for that. I'm sure that was an actual choice for the story. Just some dialed back just a little bit. I do wish we had just a little bit more answers when it came to things like exactly why do you want the calendar to do that? I mean, you're just trying to create the symbol and okay, cool, and move on. I wish we just had a little bit more, because she's like literally like, it's an algorithm. It's his algorithm. And by the end of it, I'm like, okay, what exactly was his algorithm? Like, I get it, the birthdays, the dates, the calendar, but I just want a little bit more. But at the same time, I do accept the fact that, especially when it comes to like police cases and stuff like that, things are resolved and you'll never get your answer. As far as like very specifics, that next level, that kind of stuff. So that could just be the case. I'm not sure. So I accept that. I still wish I had a little bit more, but I still had enough to leave me satisfied, and I do think it was a really good movie.
I think for me, Rick, you mentioned the 50s. To me, this film brought me to the 70s. I think the most analogous horror film to Longlegs is the original Exorcist. And if we remember back to the original Exorcist, that too was called the scariest movie of all time. People were getting uncomfortable in the screenings. They were passing out. There was all this stuff around it. And regardless of, and I remember when I first watched The Exorcist and I had that hype, all those decades of hype in my mind, and it didn't live up to it. And I turned on the original Exorcist. I thought this is not a good movie. I like Exorcist 3 better. Going back to it, it definitely has this darkness. It has this tone where the ending of the movie is very dour. Like, we win, but not really. Like, we just stopped this particular scheme. The devil has his hands in many pots.
It's legs.
To me, his legs. He's got his legs. Because he is the massive spider. He's weaving this web. Maybe that's how we should interpret
and
the
they
name.
even mentioned the Book of Revelations earlier. The 10 heads with the 10 crowns, and yeah.
I think that's what I would say, is that this is a film that is going to maybe, hopefully, inspire more respect for this concept of the demonic. It's not fun. It's not exciting. It's not meant to titillate you. It's not a blockbuster. This is not advertisement that it's the scariest movie of all time. It is just a very direct look at what evil is, what corruption is, and it will hopefully unsettle you. I do agree with some of what you've said, Brandon. I think this film is just shy of brilliance. I do think Nick Cage, he could have toned it down a little bit in certain scenes. There were some scenes where he was pitch perfect, other scenes where it was a little. It's hard. You got Nick Cage. Like, you want to let him riff.
Yeah.
But there is an undeniable, as Rick, you keep saying, the devil likes to play. The fact that he feels like he's doing a comedy routine almost, like a demonic comedy routine. He's going to randomly shout, randomly sing, randomly do these things.
Yep.
It does.
He ends the movie kind of winking at you and blowing a kiss.
Yeah. I think that's what I'll say is that the film is definitely Oz Perkins. I need to go back and watch his other films. This is definitely like I would say you're right, Rick. Like we got a lot of great auteur filmmakers and a lot of we have this like kind of cringe name of elevated horror, but I do feel like there's a lot of auteurs that exist that are making some very unsettling horror films that hopefully reach the audience in a way that will shock them in a good way, not in the blatant way of trying to shock, but in their stark view of the strength of evil and that what we all stand against throughout our lives, and as we build families of our own, we need to make sure that we do our best to ensure that nothing gets in under the floorboards. That's all.
Or through the front door.
Yeah.
Under a black veil. As a doll.
Or a giant blue alien with the long braid. Stay away from
Or
the
a
braid,
guy
by
with
the way.
arrows on his head.
So, what would you guys give this sequel to Captain Carter or Agent Carter, Avatar, The Last Airbender, on a scale from, or actually I shouldn't say on a scale, whatever scale you want to give it.
If I were to give it a scale, I'd say it's a solid 8 out of 10 because it is just shy of being really, really good. I would still call it really good, though. I can't wait for the sequel, Short Arms.
T-Rex arms.
Yeah.
I would say I'm going off the letterbox scale because I did link to this channel from my letterbox. I refused to give it a review there. I linked to this channel because it's an exclusive.
This is your review of it.
Yes, it is. I was thinking of giving it 3.5, which again each star is 2. So I was thinking of giving it 3.5. But I think this conversation has made me realize this is a 4 out of 5 stars. This is an 8 out of 10. Easy. One of the easiest 8 out of 10s I've ever given. Like, again, just tiny little things. Sometimes like trying to scale something is. I think this is a valuable film. I think it's very artistically well done. But this is a solid 4 stars. We'll see Oz Perkins' next movie in theaters, 100%.
I would also say that like it is one of like the only movies in a long time that like I want to rewatch it like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, honestly, that was me. Like I literally got out of the theater and I'm like, I really want to go watch this again.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get some of those questions I had unanswered answered.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So what do you give this film, Rick?
I give it. I think I have the highest rating from all you guys because I really enjoyed the movie a lot. And this had been a movie I've been looking forward since it was been announced by Oz Perkins because, like I said, I've watched all of his films. I give it 9 Hail Satans out of 10. I feel like it will be a modern horror masterpiece that in the next 10 to 15 years we will still be talking about.
Fair.
I can see it. I can see it easily.
Yeah, I think it's up there with, like you said, all the elevated horror films that everybody talks about. It is up there with them all. I think it's slightly better than them all because I think this might be like my favorite horror film of the last possibly like 5 to 10 years.
I think that's a good take. I mean, like, it does have competition, but I would not debate anyone putting it up there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It does the same things like what Hereditary was trying to do, kind of warn us off of that, generational like horror of it like affecting families, and I think it did a marvelous job at that. And then the whole film was like, it felt like it was under control. It was methodically pushing you towards this conclusion, and that's really hard to do without it being like too tight and feeling like the film didn't have enough time to breathe. But that film breathed and made you feel every feeling that it set out to make you feel.
And one last thing, I will say, I already said it earlier, the opening scene, perfect.
Yeah.
The whole sequence up through like her in the house getting the letter, perfect. Like the
Mhm.
scene of her like in the house when he gets in and she's like looking around, excellent. Loved
Mhm.
it. It's just awesome. Like the negative space, like everything about that, I was like looking in the doorways, waiting for him
Yeah.
to appear, for something to appear.
Yep.
I was hook, line, and sinker for the first like 40 minutes of this movie, and it's not that the rest, wasn't fantastic. It's just that first 40 minutes is like,
Mhm.
you know,
And the film, even though like it moved pretty methodically slow, it didn't feel like as long as the runtime it was. It felt like a literal like hour long movie. It didn't feel long at all,
mm-hmm.
and that's hard to do with a type of film like that.
Yeah, true.
All right.
Well, that was ripped to shreds. We may have ripped it to shreds, not really in a negative way, but I think we got a lot of shred out of that ripping, and we got some details, found out the true meaning of Satan, and really learned a lot about ourselves. And it was ultimately about the dolls we made along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Hail Hercule.
Yep.
Subscribe, hit like, share the video, watch some other videos. Bye.
Boy.
That's the most Chad way to do it. Watch some other videos. Bye.